Hi, I'm Lydia Buck, and for this week's video exploration, I decided to look into Emil Kraepelin a bit more. Emil Kraepelin was a German psychiatrist born February 15th, 1856. He was one of the most influential psychiatrists of his time, and we even still use his, some of his work today. He developed a system of classification for mental illnesses, which was a basis for future classifications for mental illnesses as well. So that kind of carried down the line. And then he also made really important differentiations between schizophrenia and manic depressive psychosis. And that work is still valid today. We still refer to his differentiation for those two mental disorders. He got his MD from the University of Würzburg in 1878. And then he continued to study further on after that, and he studied under the experimental psychologist that we learned a lot about this week, Wilhelm Wundt. Kraepelin also studied the effects of drugs, fatigue, and alcohol on psychological functioning, and he published a study on the influence of infectious diseases on the onset of mental illness in 1881. And he furthermore separated mental illnesses into two types of disorders. First being exogenous disorders and endogenous disorders. Exogenous disorders he felt were, or theorized, would be treatable and have external causes, whereas endogenous disorders he said would be incurable because they had biological causes, things like metabolic dysfunctions, organic brain damage, and hereditary factors. In the future, he was also appointed to be a professor at the University of Dorpat in 1885, and then he went on to be a professor several years later at the University of Heidelberg. I think it's really interesting that even though his work was from so long ago and things changed so much as we learn over those years, that he was able to come up with such an important distinction between two major mental illnesses, the manic depressive psychosis and schizophrenia. And I think it's amazing that we still use his distinctions to this day. I don't think that we see things last as that for that long, because it's been, since the late 1800s. So those have lasted, and I think that's pretty remarkable.